There we go. So we're recording now. So hi, my name is Noah Valladolid. I'm one of the educators with Shortcuts Software. And today we're going to be looking at targets in the cloud. So if you have attended our previous classroom sessions or our previous webinars, then you already know a few of the things. We are recording this. If you're coming in late, we will be sharing a copy of this recording with you. So this presentation is approximately 30 minutes. Of course, my microphone is on. We are recording. We will be sharing this. We will be taking questions at the end, unless it's something super pressing. So hold on to your questions. But on your toolbar, on your GoToMeeting, GoToWebinar toolbar, you should see a questions bar. So if you just type out your questions there, we will get to that at the end. As always, let's actually just jump right into today's presentation. I understand everybody is excited about targets, and we're finally ready to roll that out for all of our Shortcuts customers. So if you're not currently using it, if you don't know what it's about, so we're going to learn exactly what are targets and why, of course, your business should be using these targets. Whether you're a barber shop, a salon, a spa, maybe you deal with appointments only, or maybe you only deal with walk-in customers, you can still set targets for your business, for your team, and then you can track it using our software. So how exactly do you set these targets? How do you find the numbers that you should be going after, whether it's for your business or again for your staff? And then where do you go to review the goals? So that's what we're going to cover today. So hopefully most of you are familiar with the idea of targets. So it's a pretty simple concept. When you're in business, your goal is not necessarily to just make the same amount day in, day out, but to actually grow, to grow your staff, to grow your retail, to grow your service sales, to grow your sundry, to grow your business and to make it efficient. So you want to start figuring out what are these goals? What are these targets that you're going after? So one of the best minds when it comes to setting goals, setting targets is Bernard Marr. He's written a few books on the subject. So a couple of his books, he's written Big Data, and then sort of a sequel, Big Data in Practice, Data Strategy, and a couple of other books. He's a futurist. He understands the numbers. He understands the business, and regardless of what industry you're in, he sort of he helps point you in the direction as to what do you need to be looking at, and then how do you actually set reasonable goals. So one of my favorite quotes from him is, a target is a goal that the company is aiming to reach. Well, that's a given. But this is the part that I really enjoyed. So targets don't tell you what you're aiming for. So you do set a target, but they actually help you measure the distance in which you fall short. So you need to understand how much work do you need to do to sort of catch up to where you'd like to be. And again, this is for your staff members, for your business entirely. Don't just think about setting a goal. I'd like my business to make more money. That's kind of abstract. What are the steps that you need to get there? What are the particular things you can focus on? So this is what Bernard tries to teach all of the businesses that he works with. And of course, you can pick up his books. So in Shortcuts, the advantages of being able to set your targets. So prior to our targets in the cloud, this is one of the number one features that a lot of our customers had been asking for. Is there a way to track what my employees are doing? Yes, we've always had that ability, whether it's service, whether it's retail, but owners have always wanted to know, can I set a target for them? So that's really what spurred us to start creating something very specific, something very dynamic, which is accessible in the cloud. So you can set targets, you can set a singular target for your entire business, or go to individual people and set targets and you'll be able to track it. So whether it's a weekly goal that you have for them, a biweekly, or even a monthly, you'll have the flexibility to create it, to follow up on it, to check the performance, and then even to adjust the goals. So we don't usually just give employees or the business one goal. Well, the goal overall is to make more money, but in which specific categories? How are we going to get there? And then once we achieve our goals in a certain week or in a certain month, where else can we improve? So it's a constant refining effort to try to find the best steps to reach your goals in your business. And of course, as with other shortcuts services, if you are a multiple site location, you can actually manage and you can look at the success of those targets from the cloud. So you don't necessarily have to be at the actual point of sale computer anymore. You can go to the cloud, set up your targets, track your targets, and even give your staff permission to look at their own targets. So we'll talk about the security in targets as well. So if you're cutting hair, or if you're focused on retail, or if you're focused on client retention, you want to have a sense as to what are my targets, what should they be, what am I looking for? So you always want to set a realistic goal. So again, the abstract is, I'd like to make more money this month, this quarter, this year. But, and I have to decline a call that's happening during my presentation. Sorry about that. So you want to set a realistic target. Don't just say, I'd like you to do double your business in service or in retail. Instead, look at how your staff is actually performing. If you think there's a gap, again, that space that they're not reaching their potential on, then focus on that. Try to set a goal for increased rebookings, for example. And then with those rebookings, there will be a chance for the service dollars to go up, the retail dollars to go up. And all we did was tell our staff members, if I can get you to try to do 5 or 6 more rebookings this week or these 2 weeks, then that's going to increase sales across the board. And then if you have some staff members, some team members that are constantly performing above and beyond, then you'll know what are their averages. How much further are they ahead than the rest of the staff? You'll want to reward these people, but you also want to incentivize the rest of the staff to try to catch up. Try to see what are the habits that your top performers have that perhaps they could be emulating. You know, are they exceptional at retail? Do they focus more on high ticket services? Things like that. So to help get your staff caught up and to also reward the employees that are constantly performing above and beyond, you can set targets for multiple reasons across multiple key performance indicators. So how do you come up with those targets? How do you know which key performance indicators to be looking at? Hopefully the majority of the people that are sitting in on this presentation or listening to the recording a little bit later on are already familiar with the console, the Shortcuts console online. And in that console, we have a tile called Scorecard. And what Scorecard does is it shows your business performance on a month-to-month basis. So if you are brand new to Shortcuts, let's say we installed Shortcuts on your system a week ago or 2 weeks ago, chances are you're not going to see much information in the scorecard. Shortcuts needs a few months to begin spotting a trend. So if you're brand new to Shortcuts, you might have to return to this in 2 or 3 months' time, once Shortcuts has seen what your 90-day trend has been. But for those that have been using the console, have been using our online services, when you go to Scorecard, the major key performance indicators for your business, we're looking at revenue, transactions, visits, and this is time between visits, clients, so client retention, client totals, and online bookings. So you can actually see, how did my business do last month with regards to any of these specific key performance indicators. And if you go into the scorecard and if you click on any particular one of those tiles, revenue, transactions, visits, then Shortcuts will give you a further breakdown on that particular information. So you'll actually see how did you do month to month and how did your business compare year over year in a particular category. And then there's a third layer that's sort of placed over that. So how has your business been performing and how has it been performing compared to industry averages? And you'll actually discover if my business had a dip last month, chances are the entire industry had a dip last month. If it had an exceptional growth period, and you look at your averages across multiple salons or multiple spas or multiple barbershops, the industry probably also experienced a growth period. So you can be above the trend, you can be below the trend, but more often than not, your business is usually following the trend. So once you identify these key performance indicators where your business is doing exceptionally well, then you can start focusing on bringing up those areas that perhaps need some improvement. So on the screen that I have right now, if you notice on the right side, we're just looking at service revenue. And you can see that the bar graph, it shows that my service averages are a little bit below the industry averages. And the industry average is demonstrated with a white line that goes across my bar graphs. But if we look at retail revenue, my retail numbers are well above the industry averages. So this is where I sort of make up the difference. Service, not so much. Retail, my business is killing it. So if you haven't looked at your key performance indicators in a long time, if you haven't looked at your scorecard in a long time, now would be a good time to go into the console.shortcutsoftware.com. You should be able to log in with your email and your password, which has hopefully already been set, and then take a look at your key performance indicators, because that's going to give you a sense as to where can I start entering my target information. Do I need to improve service, client retention, retail numbers? Take a good look at those numbers. So once you understand your key performance indicators, how do you get to targets? How do you set those targets? So you're still in the console, and from the main console page, you're actually going to go to the Shortcuts Cloud button. Now, you don't have to log into the console necessarily to get to the cloud. You might just want to bookmark this page on your computer, or if you have your phone or tablet, you're going to go to pointofsale.shortcutsoftware.com. So that's pos.shortcutssoftware.com. And you're going to log in with your same console username and password. And once you're in the cloud, to get to the target setup, you're going to go to Menu, and then the Employees and Schedules button, and then into Targets Setup. So first, look at your KPIs, write yourself some notes. Where would you like to improve? And then log into the cloud and start to set up your targets. So when you're configuring targets, if you are the salon manager, so employees do not have the ability to set their own targets, you would have to do this. So you have 6 KPIs that you can be looking at, and they happen to be very similar to the KPIs that are in the scorecard. So you're looking at your net sales. So that would be for the business. So you can set one goal for your business and then total sales for your individual staff members. You can set a target for service sales, rebooking percentages, average spend per ticket, and of course, customer visits. So for net sales, service sales, retail, and average spend, you can put a dollar amount, 1,000, 2,000, whatever the case may be. And then for rebooking, you can set a percentage. I'd like you to try to get 25% rebooking. 50% rebooking, whatever that goal is. And remember, it doesn't necessarily have to be a goal that's very easy to manage, a 5 or a 10% goal. Try to give the staff member an ideal target of where you'd like them to be. And perhaps they don't yet have the tools, or they don't have the confidence or the ability to communicate with their customers what it takes to get to that goal. But if you set a goal, and if the employee understands how far they are from their current sales or their current productivity to getting to that goal, then they understand I only have to do 10% more, 20% more, try a little bit harder, and I will be right at my target. So it's okay if it's a little bit higher than they anticipate, because you want them to reach their potential. So you give them a goal that they can realize I'm close to my goal, I can go a little bit, try a little bit harder, and reach it. So when you're setting up your targets, think about your business goals, think about your individual team goals. And they can be different. If you have a junior employee, an apprentice, you can set these targets much smaller than your senior and your master employees. So then once you set all of your targets in the cloud, you'll want to review them. And again, since this is cloud-based, you're not going to be at the point of sale. You can review your targets when you're at home. You can review these targets when you're on the road. So in the cloud, you're going to menu, reports, targets, and the dashboard is going to have a tile for each of those KPIs. So on that screen, you'll actually see a line that shows this is where your target was, and then a sort of blue line that shows this is where you were actually performing. And Shortcuts will actually give you a summary. Were you on target? Were you a little bit above, a little bit below? How close were you to all of these goals that you had? From that window, if you look at the top right, you can actually set the date range. So you can set it to analyze this week, the last couple of weeks. And if you're a multiple site location, you can even say, I only want to look at my targets for this site or this other site or all of the sites together. You also have the ability to look at your targets for all employees or single out specific employees. Now, you are an administrator. You get to set these targets. You get to look at targets across the board for your businesses, for your employees, for your sites. For the staff, however, when you give them permission, if you give them permission to look at their targets, they only get to see themselves. They don't necessarily get to see your business totals or your averages if you don't want them to. So you can work with your staff and create an attainable goal for them. And then at the end of the week, at the end of 2 weeks, they can actually use their phone or a tablet and just log in with their own username and password and see how close were they to achieving their goal, or did they go above and beyond. And then once that happens, you can work with them on adjusting the goals or the targets for the next period. So before we wrap this up, I'm actually going to show you where in the cloud you would go to set certain security preferences. So let me get out of this presentation for just a moment, and let's go to the cloud. So if you're in the cloud and you want to make sure that your staff doesn't have too many permissions regarding the targets, you're going to go to the menu and you're going to go to General Settings. Under General Settings, you're going to go to Roles. Now, by default, the cloud has two basic roles, Site Manager or Employee. If you're an administrator, you're usually under Site Manager permissions, so you get to see and do just about everything. But for the employees, if we go to the Employee role setup and we look at our permissions, we can actually see under reports, employees can see their own employee performance report, they can view the dashboard, and they can view their own KPIs/targets. Let's say you decide to modify this. Maybe you don't want them to look at the dashboard or to look at the employee performance report. If you click this salmon colored link that says permissions, when you're in roles, then Shortcuts will actually open up the ability to say yes or no on a slider and choose which reports can they see. So I can go to reports. So you can enable all or just one or two reports if you choose. And then everybody under the employee setting will have these permissions. So perhaps I only want them to see their targets, their key KPIs. So once I press done, anybody with the employee permission now can only see their targets. So also, if you're an administrator and you're on your menu, when you go to reports, you'll now see that you have a new report. So previously you had access to booking analysis, employee productivity, the dashboard, the trading summary, employee performance. Now you should have a targets tile. So we're enabling this on all of the customers that have the cloud. If you currently do not have the cloud, or if you do not have this, we're going to talk about that. So I'm going to go back to the presentation. So now we have an understanding of what targets are, what our KPIs are for our business, why you should be using targets. And again, whether you're a salon, a spa, or barbershop, whether you deal with walk-ins only or appointments, you can still set goals for your business, goals for your staff. How to set up those specific targets for each person, and then where to go to review those goals. So we are rolling it out for our customers that have cloud access, that have already been using the cloud. If you don't have it, if you've not signed up for the cloud, if you're not on one of our tiers, then you absolutely want to get upgraded because we've got a number of cloud-based features that are available. Cloud appointment book, cloud reports, client information cards available online in the cloud, and of course, now our targets. So if you are using an old version of Shortcuts, if you've not upgraded to anything in a while, now's probably the best time to sign up. So give our customer care team a call. It's our main 866 number, and you're going to go to option 2. Or you can always reach out to us at customercareusa@shortcuts.net. So now, if you have questions, we'll take a moment. So on the right side of the screen, in your GoToWebinar, GoToMeeting, there should be a question toolbar. Go ahead and I'll bring this out on my side so I can take a look at it. And I'll see if anybody has a question. And while I'm waiting for those, I'm going to drink some water. Victoria always has the great questions. So she is asking, can you set up another level of employee role, such as owner, site manager, employee, and perhaps a middle level salon manager? Yes, you can actually do that, along with associated permissions. So let me get out of the presentation again. And back into the cloud. So we had gone to general setting roles, So this is where you can usually fine tune the specific goals for or the specific permissions for our two default, employee and site manager. But like Victoria says, let's say you want to give somebody more permissions than an employee, but less permissions than a site manager. So down at the bottom of the screen, you can actually press the new button and you can create a new custom level. So I can call this one, for example, assistant manager. And then I can tell Shortcuts which of my employees is going to be my assistant manager. So I can say Geo is going to have this permission. And then what exactly does that permission entail? So I can click on my specific permission settings from appointment book all the way down through configuration, general settings, customer, and just select the sliders on the right and say yes and no. You can see this, but you can't see that. And then once I press done, Geo will have the permissions of the assistant manager. Now, if the assistant manager permissions are in conflict with the employee permissions, the assistant manager permissions will override that. So if you notice, my site managers, I have a handful of site managers, but they also have employee permissions. So that doesn't mean that these site managers are limited to only what employees can see. It's sort of the opposite. A site manager can see everything they're supposed to see and everything an employee is supposed to see. I hope that makes sense for everybody. So yes, Victoria, you can create custom permission levels for the cloud. And the staff member would use their existing username and password so that they can log in and then have access to these new features. Okay. Are there any other questions? Sorry, I got a cough. Every time the vent kicks in, I always start coughing. And I'll go back to the slideshow. I think that might be answering the questions that everybody had there. I'm sure everybody's logging into the cloud right now and starting to set some targets. And remember, don't forget to go to the console and look at your KPIs. Now, if you have an older version of Shortcuts, and perhaps you notice that your scorecard doesn't seem to be reporting correctly or hasn't recorded information in a while, then you might be having some sort of network or some sort of performance issues at your point of sale computer. If that happens, let the help desk know right away. We may have to resynchronize your information. So that usually happens on old builds of Shortcuts. So just double check it in the console. Okay, if there are no other questions, we'll go ahead and wrap this up. So if you're not using the cloud, if you have an old build of Shortcuts, if you haven't upgraded or are not on one of our new tiers, be sure to reach out to customer care. We'll answer any questions you have, make sure that you're ready to upgrade. You can also send us an email or visit us on social media, and we will be sure to get right back to you. So you can visit us on Facebook at Shortcuts USA, and we also answer our questions there as well. So if there are no other questions, I'll check the questions again. I'll check the chat window. I don't think I have any other things. But if you think of anything after the fact, go ahead and reach out to us. We will get back to you. And here we go. Oh, I did have one more question. Let's see, Jill. When you say point of sale is available on cloud, does that mean we can check out? Good question, Jill. No, you cannot currently check out in the cloud. That is a feature that we are working on. I don't have an ETA for you, but we are working on that functionality. So stay tuned because when it's ready, we will be making a presentation on that. So then you will finally be liberated from having to go to the point of sale computer all the time. Okay, but if anybody else thinks of any questions after today's presentation or as you're reviewing it, be sure to reach out to us. You can email us, visit us on Facebook, and we will get back to you. Well, thank you all for attending. We will be uploading a copy of this recording in just a few minutes, and I look forward to seeing you on our next presentations. Have a great day.